Imagine defending the most powerful and most prosecuted man in America. Now imagine that same man handing you the keys to the entire U.S. Justice Department. That is not a hypothetical. That is the real story of Todd Blanche. Just one day ago, on April 2nd, 2026, the man who once stood beside Donald Trump at the defense table is now standing at the head of the Department of Justice. So who exactly is Todd Blanche, and how did a guy who was a registered Democrat just a few years ago become the acting top law enforcement officer in the United States? Buckle up, because this story is wild. Todd Wallace Blanche was born on August 6, 1974, in Denver, Colorado. Not exactly a D.C. insider, not a political dynasty kid. His father, Richard, was a Canadian hockey player who later managed a religious congregation, the Faith Bible Fellowship, out of the family's own basement. His mother was a nurse. It was a modest working-class upbringing, and by all accounts, young Todd Blanche had his eye not on politics, but on the law. He earned his undergraduate degree from American University in 1994. Then, 9 years later, in 2003, he graduated from Brooklyn Law School. Brooklyn, not Harvard, not Yale, not the Ivy League pipeline that feeds so many of Washington's elite institutions. Brooklyn Law School. And yet that degree would open doors that no one could have predicted. Fresh out of law school, Blanche landed at one of the most prestigious prosecutorial offices in the country, the U.S. Attorneys for the Southern District of New York, the SDNY. The office that has taken down mob bosses, Wall Street fraudsters, and terrorists. Blanche worked in its violent crimes division for 8 full years. He wasn't chasing white-collar paper trails. He was putting dangerous people behind bars. That experience shaped him, a prosecutor who knew how to build cases, how to dismantle witnesses, how to survive a courtroom fight. In 2017, Blanche made the move that many ambitious federal prosecutors make. He went private. He became a partner at Cadwalder, Wickersham, and Taft, one of the oldest and most storied law firms in America. And here's where the story gets interesting. At this point, Todd Blanche was still a registered Democrat. Let that sink in. The man who would eventually become Trump's most loyal legal soldier, a registered Democrat, representing corporate clients, living what looks like a very conventional big law life. Blanche began representing figures from Trump's orbit: Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign manager; Igor Fruman, the businessman tied to the Ukraine pressure campaign; Boris Epshteyn, a Trump political strategist. These were not random clients. They were a constellation of names orbiting one gravitational center: Donald J. Trump. And eventually, inevitably, that orbit pulled Blanche all the way to the top. At some point, a point that Blanche himself may not have fully anticipated, Blanche became Donald Trump's personal defense attorney. Not for a small case, not for a civil dispute, for the most high-profile criminal proceedings in modern American history. Blanche was lead counsel in Trump's hush money criminal trial in New York, the case brought by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg involving payments to Stormy Daniels. His defense strategy was bold. He worked to discredit Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer turned star witness, painting him as a man driven by revenge and financial motive. He sparred loudly and publicly with Cohen in the courtroom. In the end, Trump was convicted, 34 felony counts, and yet Blanche stayed. He didn't run from the association with a convicted client. He doubled down. He also represented Trump in the classified documents case brought by Special Counsel Smith and in the federal election interference case. 3 massive federal and state prosecutions, one defense attorney at the center of all of them. And somewhere along the way, Blanche changed his party registration from Democrat to Republican. When Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election, everyone in Washington wanted to know who gets rewarded. Todd Blanche's name surfaced immediately. Sources told ABC News he was being considered for Deputy Attorney General, White House counsel, even FBI director. In November 2024, Trump made his choice. Blanche would be nominated as Deputy Attorney General, the number 2 position at the Justice Department. In February 2025, Blanche appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee. In March 2025, he was confirmed. The man who had defended Trump in criminal court was now the second most powerful law enforcement officer in the country, and he wasted no time making his presence known. He dismissed Erez Ravuni, a DOJ immigration lawyer, for conceding in court that a Salvadoran man named Kilmar Abrego Garcia had been wrongly deported. He barred DOJ lawyers from attending American Bar Association events. He disbanded the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team, notable given that financial records showed Blanche himself held several $100,000 in crypto. He also ordered the arrest of Newark Mayor Ras Baraka over an immigration detention center incident. And in a statement at the conservative political conference, he declared the DOJ was in a war with rogue activist judges. This was not a quiet Deputy Attorney General. There is one chapter in Blanche's tenure as Deputy AG that stands above the rest in sheer political drama: the Epstein files. Epstein, the convicted sex offender and financier whose alleged network of powerful associates has fueled years of speculation and conspiracy, had become a flashpoint for MAGA world. Attorney Pam Bondi faced withering criticism from Trump's own base for what many saw as a slow and unsatisfactory release of Epstein-related files. It was Todd Blanche who stepped to the forefront. It was Blanche who announced what the DOJ called the final release of the Epstein files in January in an ABC News interview. He declared, "This review is over." But he left the door open on prosecutions. "If we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will," he told Fox News. The Epstein controversy and Bondi's handling of it is widely believed to be a central reason Trump eventually lost confidence in her. Which brings us to yesterday. On April 2, 2026, Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. He praised Pam Bondi for her service. He announced she would be transitioning to a much-needed and important new job in the private sector. And then he named her replacement. Our Deputy Attorney General and a very talented and respected legal mind, Todd Blanche, will step in to serve as acting Attorney General. Blanche responded on X, formerly Twitter, thanking Trump for the trust and the opportunity to serve. Just like that, the man who had once sat at the defense table fighting to keep Donald Trump out of prison was now sitting at the head of the Department of Justice. An administration official told Axios that Blanche is among those being considered for a permanent nomination as Attorney General. Trump described him on Truth Social as a very talented and respected legal mind. That's presidential branding in the age of Trump. And for Blanche, it may be the beginning of an even steeper ascent. So what do we make of Todd Blanche? Is he a brilliant attorney who followed his clients and his opportunities all the way to the top of American law? Is he a loyalist rewarded for his willingness to bet everything on one man? Or is he something more complicated, a pragmatist who saw which way the wind was blowing and adjusted his sails? The answer probably depends on who you ask, but here's what's undeniable. In the span of just a few years, Todd Blanche went from a defense lawyer fighting to keep his client out of prison to the acting head of the very government that was trying to put him there. That is one of the most extraordinary reversals of fortune in modern American legal history. And the story isn't over yet. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. What do you think this means for the Department of Justice? Let's talk about it.